everybody. So I'm taking a request here. I was asked to do a video talking about the guitar tone, specifically dialing it into Helix, but I'll get into that because it doesn't have to just be for that. From Blink's Untitled record, which you see the poster back up here. That's a very old 20-year-old poster. It might be older than some of you guys watching this, maybe. It's kind of torn up, but it's cool. It has the date on it. It says new album, but you can't see it because of my one of my record crates is up there. Anyways, so yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about today. This video is going to be a lot of talking. The accompanied video will be a lot of tones. I'll play along in this, but it's going to be through my microphone. It's not going to be direct. The other one will have more like kind of side by side. So yeah, let's get into it. So anyways, also this is the I think the first time I've ever played this on my channel, which is pretty cool. It's the Epiphone, but it's a nice guitar. It actually stays in tune really good, and I've used it on an EP once, so pretty cool. But yeah, this is a record where I don't think Tom used this guitar that much on it. We're going to get into that, but I wanted to use it for fun. I thought actually my Les Paul might have made more sense, but we'll get to there. So anyways, yeah, this record's pretty interesting. This is the third record they did with Jerry Finn, not counting the stuff he did on the live album. And really for Tom, I think it's the fourth, because I'm pretty sure Jerry Finn did the Boxcar Racer stuff, where I believe a lot of this kind of stems from, as far as not just the riffs, but kind of the sounds he wanted. You know, it's funny, they kind of went from polished Descendants style to like Tom got really into like Quicksand and Fugazi and a lot of this like post-hardcore stuff, which is very cool, a lot of music I like. It starts doing these kind of, these riffs, these, and just for example, I have that Easy Target when I played at the beginning, just, but then it goes into these, playing octaves on the low strings. Kind of like, you'd hear this too. I believe he wrote the riff for Up All Night during this session. You can see in the recordings. And that was kind of like something that almost made sense on a Boxcar song. So a lot of these like chordy riffs and like low octaves and things like that. And along with those styles, a lot of these old bands are using like old Marshalls, really. And I think that Blink was probably using Marshalls on most of their recordings. I really think that Jerry Finn was using them. But, Tom's live sound is a completely different thing here. So I want to also say that right away. We're not talking about the live, like his crazy hot Mesa tone where he had like the triple rack and the tri-axis and the Marshall preamps and like all the, like this is a totally different thing, because live he was doing that. He kind of stuck with that for a while in that era, but this is specifically to this record. And something that's important to remember when it comes to like albums, it's all about the context of the mix. So the guitars, I don't have ISO tracks. Like, I wish I could do like the Rick Beato thing where I got all the isolated tracks. That'd be sick. But I don't have them. So anyways, if you listen to the isolated guitars, sometimes with no bass or anything, sometimes they don't sound as great as people think, because a lot of times it's the bass is taking up the low end. That's what it's supposed to do. So you'd scoop a lot of the low end out of the guitar, unlike you would if you're just playing in your room or something. And it's compressed, it's glued together, there's a lot of EQ going on. So I talk about that in some of my other videos. It's important to remember that like this guitar tone was supposed to sound like what Tom wanted, or what Jerry Finn and him agreed on, or whatever it is, but in the context of the mix, with Mark's bass, with Travis's drums, with a lot of the effects. There's piano on this record and keyboards, and there's a lot of flanger on different instruments, and the vocals take up a lot of empty space. So like Feeling This, for example, and I don't have this, so Feeling This is actually drop D with a capo on the second fret. You can play it without that, but the reason it does that is it makes the whole, guitar reflect like a drop E, like the key of E. So when you're playing these, the whole thing kind of, the harmonic like qualities and the overtones reflect E. But just for the sake of this video, I'm just keeping this in standard. I'm not dropping it down for obvious or whatever. I could grab other guitars, but again, this is more of the talking video. So, and the reason I want to give context here is just to remember things like Feeling This has so many vocals and drum parts, no bass or no guitar. and they do a lot of the same, like that main riff where it'll be up the middle and kind of have some EQ. It'll be almost lo-fi, and then it'll be panned hard right and left, real wide sounding and huge, but it's really the same riff. So the tone is not really the thing that's doing all of that, like in a live setting where, you know, clean, distorted, or overdrive, like that's your dynamics for the guitar. It's really more of like the way it's mixed and the way it's written, really. The guitar parts are written, where they are, where they drop out, which is what makes this album really cool. But it's not really that much going on. I really think that they kind of found the right tones and then they overdubbed. Like, for example, I really think Jerry Finn was famous for blending amps, but I also really think that he probably had Tom like quad track some of the choruses. So like when you see, and there's old videos of them, the videos they used to post on the website when they were doing this record, you can find them on YouTube. I think somebody put all of them up. I think the guy Cheeto is his name who used to post those, I think, or take the videos, whatever. There's like, obviously there's like plexis, like there's Marshall plexis, there's like a white one. There's an old, it looks like a JCM 800 with like the gray grill, like a really old one. Then there's like a Diesel Herbert or something like that, like an old, like Diesel in the early 2000s, really popular, like Billy Corgan was using them and stuff. They're so, like, so much low end and so much gain, like, so much gain. Doesn't that actually, low end is maybe not the best way to describe it, but it has this kind of like ballsiness to it. Obviously there's Mesa rectifiers everywhere, because why wouldn't there be? It's 2003 in this video, so you know. But I really think that some of those amps are being blended together, and then they're saying, okay, like let's get this kind of main like rhythm tone, and then we're gonna quad track the choruses. So there's, you know, hard right and hard left, and then another hard right and hard left where there's different tone just to make it thick and fat. Or he might be splitting the tones one way or the other. Even feeling this, like a good example is the riff, like the bridge riff, where it's something like this, whatever that part is. I think that's in the right, or the, I think it's in the right ear. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. But the left, like the other side, is just the muted like root notes of the chords. So they do all this stuff to make it sound wide and sound fat. But really, the main guitar sound, from what I gauged, is based off of like a mid-rangey, Marshall-y style tone that kind of harkens back to old punk rock, but it's recorded well. So like you listen to a lot of punk from the 70s and 80s and post-hardcore and stuff that Tom was really into, and Mark for that example, you know, for that matter. It's a lot of people just getting Marshall heads, old plexis and stuff, whatever they could get, and trying to jump them, make them hot, but they didn't really have that much gain to them. They didn't have master volumes. They just had like one, like they were loud as hell, and that's how they had to be if you wanted to get them cooking. That's why people started modding those heads and jumping the bright and dark, you know, bass channels, and there's all kind of stuff they would do. But that's kind of my gauge on this, not just based on the studio gear, but just the sound. It has this kind of mid-range sound, so I dialed it in to sound something like this, you know. Now this pickup's really hot, and Tom was playing, I think he got his first couple of these when they were doing the record, because he played it at Summer Sonic, and he had that weird one with the orange headstock and orange stripe. But he's playing the red one that had the Invader in it at the time, the boxcar one as people call it with the stickers. He had like some of his strats there. You could see him playing like the natural wood one with the stripe. He had a, like, there's playing a Les Paul Custom, which is probably one of Jerry Finn's, that white one. And those, depending on what year it is, it probably had something like a 498T in it, but it could have been something else depending on the era. It's hard to tell, or he could have swapped them out. But also Jerry Finn had the Telly, like the Telly Juniors that they call them, where it had like, it was basically, or a Telly Special. It's basically a Les Paul Junior, or Les Paul Special rather, with two P90s, but in like a Gibson scale. But Fender made those in Tellys at the custom shop. He had a few of those. I don't have anything with P90s. That's probably what I would have grabbed for this, and that's probably what I'm trying to look for in the tone as well. But this Dirty Fingers is super hot. It's a lot more high end than the Invader. The Invader is much more low end. It's not as shrill as the X2N. So it's kind of like, I I don't like, so I have a 498T in my Les Paul, and I had the Gibson 500T, which is like something that comes in some of their guitars, a lot of times like Explorers. That one's got too much high end and not enough balls. The 498T is nice, but you got to dial in for it. Some people don't like it for that reason. This to me is actually a really good pickup. I'm not huge on Gibson pickups. I think that they're good. I don't think that they're the be all end all, but like I like this pickup. I used to have it in a Les Paul of mine actually, that I installed it in there before I even had this. I don't even think Epiphone was selling these at the time. I think they were just, Gibson was starting to sell those pickups. But anyways, long story short. So yeah, a lot of these tones here are going to be these like kind of gritty Marshall-y tones. So for the Helix, if I can get my Logic to pop up. Okay, so my chain is a noise gate on the stock setting. That's just to get rid of any noise. You can kind of hear there's some hiss there. That's really all it is. It's not like feedback or anything. Then I have a distortion patch, but that's not what it is, and we'll get into that. My amp, my cab, an EQ, and a compressor at the end, which I'm going to talk about because that's really odd, right? So anyways, the amp I chose is just the Brit Plexi Normal, which is just a Marshall Plexi model. If I take off everything but that and the cab, let's see how that sounds. It's a lot different. I don't have it set up to be real hot. And then the cab I'm using is a Mesa, like the V30 style cab with the, it's got a 67 condenser mic on it. And it's funny because, like, I don't know, like, Jerry Finn probably was using old Marshall cabs, or, like, I could even see him having Tom playing into, like, Class A, like, Bad Cat stuff, or Orange, like, you know, that's just Finn. I mean, Jerry Finn was so good. Like, if you only are just into him because of Blink, like, check out his other stuff. One of my favorite records he ever did was the Super Drag record from '98, which the title escapes me. It's like the girl with the headphone on it. It's really great rock record, and tones were way different than Blink. But anyways, Jerry Finn really knew what he was doing here. So you kind of get, you know, I'm trying to go for that kind of Marshall-y sound. I've had the cab that gives kind of that push and that breakup. But then, okay, so I'll put the gate back on because it's about to hiss. The distortion patch is the Range-Master, which is the Dallas Range-Master. That was a studio tool and kind of gave some more push, some more treble, and brighten things up. People love using the studio. So with that on, it sounds like this. So without, you can see it just gets a little high-end, little life. And then after my cab, I go to a just a simple EQ. I was going to use a parametric, but I didn't want to start tweaking this for, like, this video took me a while to kind of get to, and I didn't want it to take any more time because the parametric, I've used like that on my Helix on records I've made, and you can get freaky with it. So anyways, simple EQ, add a little bit of that. Now, when I put this on YouTube, it's going to get compressed from just uploading it, so this is probably going to sound way too distorted, but in the room it sounds great. So it goes from this to, oops. You can barely even tell. It just gives a little bit of, almost like a sizzle, a little bit of high end. It just, I boost it a little bit, boost the signal. And the way I have the EQ is really just to take out some of the low and some of the mids without taking out too much. Mostly low end, because the low end is really what's going to get dialed out of the mix with the bass. Mark's bass really holds it together. But when I'm doing a video like this, I can't take all the low end out because then it's going to sound like shit and not anything close, since it's just guitar. And then at the end, and this is really what's cooking the whole thing, is I have this LA Studio comp for the compressor. And there's your compression, but I really just have it as like in the limiter setting, so I can kind of get it to where I want it to be. So before that, gives it some volume, gives it a little push. And this tone is weird. Like, this isn't really something I would probably use. But when you put it in the context of the album and the songs, that's kind of where it's sitting, you know. Sorry, I told you I haven't played the songs in a while. But yeah, it's this kind of rock tone that has just enough sizzle to be enough high gain, enough highs in general. Two different things there I'm trying to explain. Enough, it has just enough of a rock tone with a little bit of high end and a little bit of gain, a little bit of sizzle on top, to where it has that kind of scratchy, like punk sound, you know? But it's really not like that Mesa, like, just killer, like, you know, knock your ass on the ground tone when you hear it live. Like, I had a rectifier, and I'll probably get another one eventually. I just wanted a different one than what I had. And even with my 5150s and different heads I've had, my Mesa cabs live, when my band play live, the bands that I use those with when we play live, I mean, you can feel those fucking things. I mean, they will, like, just push a lot of air. And that was Tom's kind of thing. It was, like, more power than gain, you know what I mean? It was that big, like, he combined the two heads, and then he had the different preamps and stuff. It was very powerful. Even when I saw him live with like the AC30 and the Fenders, like people hate on that all the time, but it was loud as hell. Like I was up front for one of those shows, and he was just, actually no, two of them. I saw him twice with that setup, but one I was like right in front of Tom, and I mean it was just like, because now with like the Axe effects and Skiba using Kemper and any other bands you see, like it's the PA, but like man. So anyways, going back to this is totally a different thing. I really think he wanted to get in the vein of some of those like old Quicksand records and things like that. And Jerry Finn knows what he's doing, so, or he did, you know, rest in peace. So this is kind of what I got. And overall, you know, you can go through the track list. It's like, you can use it for feeling this. Obviously, again, I'm not tuned down for it with the capo, but feeling this might sound a little bit sharper and a little bit hotter, but I feel like that's, again, it drags you in with that kind of lo-fi intro, and then the width of it's just crazy. It just sounds so wide and so huge, even though it's like an octave riff. Obvious is very much in this vein, but it's tuned down to like C sharp standard, which I didn't want to do because I actually could have. I have a guitar that's an A sharp right now, but maybe when I'll do a cover or something, or a lesson on it. But if anybody's interested in Blink covers or lessons, let me know. But that darkness comes from that tone, and you obviously have to EQ for that and take out even like kind of more low end. And I know this from experience, because I have bands like my solo stuff, I'm in standard and I capo up like even up to the second fret, so it's like real high. And then like one of my bands, we play down in drop A sharp, so I know how that EQ spectrum works in the studio when you're tracking, and what it sounds like in the room and what it sounds like on the record. They definitely had to mess with that a little bit, but Tom had baritone guitars, so it's a little bit probably crisper and a little bit tighter sounding. But again, that's the same kind of, you know, you can get those nasty sounds with that. Misuse acoustic, violence, again, same kind of thing, you know. Stockholm Syndrome, same type of tone. I don't remember how to play it, I'm sorry. Again, I learned these in like middle school, and I'm a grown-ass man now, so it's been a while. But still love the songs, I just haven't played them in a minute. Okay, let's see, down the same again. In the room, this sounds like down on the record. I don't know, maybe he did use a semi-hollow for it, but because it has this like resonance to this guitar, has a certain like low end like resonance to it, and it's just like different songs, but that's again same thing. Fallen Interlude, okay, whatever. Go, you know. Same thing, same type of sound. Asthenia and Always kind of venture off into different things, which we can talk about, but that might be for another video when it comes to like more effects. And I think the rhythm guitars are in there, but they're not as hot for the sake of the song. those are the types of songs that they talk about on that record when it's like, we got to pick for per song the right strings and the right picks and the right amps and all that stuff. It's like, yeah, no kidding, because it's like they're way different. Easy Target, though, again, I started I made the same mistake again. All of this is, again, acoustic-y like type stuff with Robert Smith, which is one of the sickest songs they ever did. Here's Your Letter, same kind of punk sound, and then Lost Without You again is one of those other like kind of, we'll get to that with more of the clean stuff. I could talk too about like, well, I could talk about Anthem Part 2 live in Chicago, but that's not really relevant except for it's the bonus track. And then, you know, like these sessions had Not Now. They did Another Girl, Another Planet for Travis's show, which is a cover. But the overall sentiment here is these songs kind of have a totally different tone to them because they are just a different vibe. I think people get kind of swept up with Blink when it comes to like the classic era of like Enema through Jacket. I'm not saying this isn't classic, but like what I mean by that is like Dude Ranch has a weird sound to it because Trombino was doing Jimmy Eat World, which is not that kind of gain, and Tom was like, they love Jimmy Eat World, and they're like, yeah, let's sound like that, but also like we want to kind of like use the same gear as Pennywise, and so it came out kind of like weird. Whereas they took that kind of idea and then dialed it in for Enema. They dialed it, you know, Jacket's very similar, with just more effects and stuff, and then the live album is him kind of doing his thing. So this is so much more like probably the least amount of actual like gain and high end that Tom used on a record. I think even the Boxcar record has a little bit more crushing, like I think he wanted it to be heavy, and that's kind of like a common misconception of like, to be heavy it has to be a lot of gain. It's like that could ruin it sometimes. It just depends really on what you're doing, and again, the whole idea of the song, not just, you know, the guitar. But I just wanted to kind of rant, and this is just kind of a discussion video so I could talk about this because I wanted to express how I feel about it, and I could be wrong about what they used gear-wise or whatever. But again, I really just think this is very much like, you know, even though they probably use several different amps and cabs and mic placements and mics and rooms and so much more, it's important to remember that this is really about using your ears, and everything on here is frequencies. That's all it is. Like, we get so swept up as guitar players, and I'm the guiltiest of them all, with gear, with pickups, with guitars, with amps, with dialing in tones, with settings, with pedals, with all that stuff. And I'm like, at the end of the day, like, yeah, like you can't make a Fender 65 Twin sound like a dual rectifier. Like, I get that. But the idea is it's all frequencies, and if you have the right gear to get in the ballpark, you can make it happen. Helix, you could pretty much do damn near anything. I know there's probably going to be people who hear what I did and go, oh, it doesn't sound anything like it, or I disagree, and that's totally fine. Again, this is just my opinion and my thoughts. I'm not saying I'm the expert here. I wasn't there when it happened. These are my ears with my monitors in the room that I'm sitting in, and it's probably going to sound different to everybody based on your ears and your experience and your, you know, your YouTube and your Wi-Fi settings. Honestly, it could get more compressed. But the idea here is just to describe what I'm kind of going for. I will list the settings of exactly what I use for Helix in the description, so if anybody wants to cut to the chase and try it out. But keep in mind, again, this is through my KRK Rocket 5s in a kind of a smaller room where I record, and I'm using this Epiphone Tom DeLonge ES333 with the Dirty Fingers pickup. Ernie Ball 52 to 10 was a skinny top, heavy bottom. One of these picks, which is not what Tom used. So that's, again, it's all my experience and everything. My best suggestion when you're trying to dial in tones is listen, actively listen, learn how to, you know, one of the things I tell younger kids, and I have family members or people who just want to learn guitar, I tell them, like, or even older, like adults who are learning music, so like, listen, actively listen, so you can learn, separate the guitar from the bass. Once you can start hearing that, you're going to be picking out everything else in the mix. You're going to hear layered guitars, you're going to hear so much more, but it takes practice and it takes commitment. So learn the songs the best you can, learn how to listen for different things, and compare them to different tones by the same band, by different bands, different song by song, and you'll be able to figure it out. I hope this was a cool, fun discussion and informative for anybody who's into it. Please leave a comment and let me know what you think about the record and these tones and what you're using to dial it in. Again, this is more for discussion than it is me telling you how to dial stuff in. I just want it to be for fun and try to help out per a request. So this is going to be accompanied with the tone video where I actually try to shoot them out, and hopefully this helps for anybody who wanted to help, and hopefully enjoyed it if you watched. So I appreciate it, and I will have some new stuff coming up soon. I have a couple more videos fired up, but I've also been in the studio recording more solo music, so sorry I've been a little busy. Thanks for watching, everybody, and have a happy, whenever you're watching this. Right now it's Saturday, so happy weekend. Peace.